This is TJ with TechMadeEZ. Welcome to my channel. My channel is all about making things affordable, practical, and easy. And what we're going to be doing today is we're basically going to be taking Windows gaming and Linux gaming and comparing the frames per second to see if there's any difference in performance in your games. Now in Linux, it's just as easy to play games in Linux as it is in Windows. You just install Steam like you do in Windows. The only difference is you have to go into the settings, go into compatibility, and turn on Proton. And then 95% of your Windows games are going to work through Steam there. You can also do the same thing with a program called Lutris if you're using Ubisoft Connect and so on and so forth. So that's what we're doing today, is I've just taken a fresh install of Windows 11, fresh install of Linux, and installed Steam, Lutris on there, and tested some games. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, my kids are gamers. My oldest son, I'm going to be moving him to Linux gaming just so that he can see what it's like for him to game on Linux. But I am not a gamer. But occasionally I do go into Windows and I do some frames per second testing with games. And part of the reason is because the systems that I use are based on Xeon processors and not on your Intel regular processors or AMD, so on and so forth. So that's what we're doing today. Again, a fresh install of Windows 11, fresh install of Linux Mint. I'm doing it on Linux Mint. There are other ones that you could do out there. And just so you a side note, and I might mention this again, is it doesn't really matter which distro you use for gaming. There are gaming distros, but those gaming distros come preloaded with tools. They don't necessarily make it so that your frames per second or your gaming is going to be any more efficient on one of those other distros. And so at this point, let's go ahead, let's get started. Okay, so here I am at my Linux desktop, and don't let this little Windows fool you here. I just put that icon there just for fun. So, but this is Linux Mint 22. I just changed the background here, and so the games are right here. But what I did, I went ahead and installed Steam. Now, just so you know, when you're running Linux, you don't have to go to the command line to do that. You can just open up the software manager. You can type in Steam, and it'll show up, and then you just install it from the GUI here, and that's it. I also installed Lutris on here. Lutris also allows you to play games on Linux. And what I did in Lutris, though, is I went ahead, here's Lutris, I went ahead and installed this Ubisoft Connect so that I could run Watch Dogs Legions. Now, you can run apps or games from this interface here, but for whatever reason, Watch Dogs Legions didn't work, and neither did Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And so I went ahead and ran that through the Ubisoft Connect here. And so there's my Watch Dogs Legions that I tested. I was going to test Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I couldn't get it to work. It wouldn't load right for some reason. Now, after I got through testing all this and everything, I realized that I maybe should have gone to Wine, gone to Settings, and gone over here to Proton Experimental. With that selection, I might have been able to run Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I don't know. But at any rate, so that's what I did here with Steam. This is the whole thing about Steam that's really nice. Once it's installed, the thing that you have to do here is you just go to Steam, you go to Settings, and then you just want to go down here, Compatibility. You want to turn on this here and choose Proton. And most people will do Proton Experimental, or a hotfix looks like a new one. I don't remember that one. But it didn't matter which one of these I used. If I used this one, this latest one here, the experimental, everything worked the same. So, but once you do that, then you can go ahead and play all of your Steam games through Steam here, whether they're a Linux. Some of these games, some Linux games are written for Linux. I think Tomb Raider is, but the rest of most of these games on here are Windows games, and so on and so forth. But all you have to do is just go ahead and click on a game and just install it just like you would in Windows, and that's it. So just hit the install button here. So that's all I did. So what I did is I wanted to test this with a fresh install of Windows 11 and a fresh install of Linux. Originally I was going to do Bazite. Bazite, when you install it, installs a whole bunch of games. Steam's already installed, Lutris is installed, so on and so forth. But you have to download the Invida card option, and I couldn't get it to go with Invida. I couldn't get it to go into 4K for whatever reason. So and Bazite is really known more to support AMD GPUs, and so now with Bazite, it runs on Fedora. I did test one game in there, and I'll show you why here in a minute. But with Linux Mint, it's so easy because you can just go to the stores anyway and install them. And then also too with Linux Mint, you don't have to install a special version. If you've got Invida on here, what will happen is you can just go to your driver section, and when Linux Mint first sees an Invida card, it's gonna install this open driver first. But then you just open this driver tool up, and you click on the latest version of Invida and hit apply, and then it'll go ahead and apply that, and you're ready to go. So that's basically what I did to get this thing ready for gaming. No special install or anything like that. Like I said, with Steam, I just selected Proton, and I just started running the games like I would in Windows. So let's go ahead and check out the results. Okay, so really quick before we test out the results, I just want to say a year ago I loaded up Linux Mint onto another system, installed Steam really quick, and just ran F1 2020 just to see the performance difference, because I'd done testing with F1 2020 before, and I noticed there was a difference in the frames per second. And so I wanted to do this a long time ago, test some games out, but I didn't get to it until now. But I really wanted to test. When I first started doing this test, I was testing Invida, the 3060, but then I decided I really wanted to test an AMD card as well. And it just so happened that my AMD card, I thought didn't work. So let me go ahead and go forward here for a minute, and I'm just going to talk about the system that was tested. So what I'm running Linux on right now, and then also too, what I like to do, because I'm running Windows and my kids are running Windows on the same system. It's a Xeon E5 2690B4. It's got 14 cores, 28 threads. This is like a 10-year-old CPU. It costs like $20. But it's great. It's a great platform. It's an X99 platform. I'm running this on an HP. My son games on an HP. My other son went ahead and ordered a X99 motherboard from China and built his own gaming rig. But again, it's still using the Xeon on there as well. So they game with the Xeon. So sometimes I would like to do some tests just to see how the Xeon system running Windows gaming is compared against somebody else. And Jared Tech is really good. He tests a lot of laptops and a lot of cards. And he uses the built-in benches to do that, so it's apples to apples. And so I like to compare my stuff against his, because he's usually running the latest and greatest. Now in this case, the 3060 he tested was 3 years ago, so it doesn't have the latest CPU, but he's still got a really nice AMD Ryzen 9 5900X 12-core 24 threads with the RTX 3060 and 32 gigs of DDR RAM running 3200 megahertz. I'm running this, again, that Xeon E5 2690B4. 14 cores, 28 threads, the RTX 3060 and the RX 6700 XT. The RAM in this system, it's a test system, so I have 64 gigs of RAM. It's running DDR4 at 2133, so the megahertz ARM is great. As Jared Tech Plus 2, I can't do any overclocking. I can't take advantage of the RAM that AMD is the smart RAM thing for gaming, so on and so forth. But I'm running Windows 11 and Linux Mint on this machine. And so just as a bench, we'll be comparing Jared Tech's results against my results as well. Not in every game, but in some of the games, so we can see what we're dealing with, even though I'm gaming on a Xeon system, or testing this on a Xeon system. Okay, so I mentioned the RX 6700 XT. What ended up happening is we went to throw that card in my son's computer, which is the same one I'm testing on right now, and it didn't work. So I thought something happened to it. I used it for some testing, and then I didn't go and use it again. So I thought something happened to it, or maybe we plugged it in wrong, and I don't know. But it ended up where I got through running all these tests with the 3060, and I really wanted to see what the performance was going to be with an AMD card, not just an Invida card. So I decided to plug it in, and lo and behold, it worked. I don't know why it didn't work. If it would have worked, it would have been in my son's system right now. So we're going to be seeing results with the RTX 3060 and the RX 6700 XT. Now this is the other thing. Now one other thing I need to talk about with Linux is that there's several distros out there that claim to be gaming distros. That doesn't mean that they get better FPS performance. like Bazite. Bazite is a gaming system, but the reason why it's a gaming system is because it comes preloaded with Steam, some other stuff, and it's on Fedora. Now, I wish I was trying to find this video as a reference. There was a Linux person that went ahead and tested, like, I want to say 15 to 20 different distros to see if there was any difference in frame performance with gaming. And it was very little from distro to distro. Sometimes 1 or 2 frames, that's it. So it doesn't really matter which distro you're using, you're going to get about the same performance. Now, one distro might give you in one game maybe a little bit better performance than maybe another distro, but that was not the norm on the testing that he did when he was doing this testing. It was actually really extensive, and it was really eye-opening, because I thought that maybe other distros, maybe Arch, would perform better, frames per second, so on and so forth. But he found that there really wasn't that much difference gaming from distro to distro on Linux. So let's go ahead and go talk about the games I tested. So I tested Shadow of the Tomb Raider, F1 2020, Borderlands 3, Watchdog Legions, Horizon Zero Dawn, Gears 5. Now I tested all these with the same settings that Jared Tech did, which is the highest settings that there is. And so that way I'm comparing apples to him as well, and apples to apples running Windows 11 and running Linux. Gears 5 is the only one that I tested in high mode. I just wanted to see the performance in high mode between Windows 11 and Linux with that test. So let's move on with the test. So the first one here is our Shadow of the Tomb Raider RTX 3060. Now, so let's just take a look at Jared Tech's results, and I am testing in 1080p, and I put 1024 here, but it's really 1080p, 1440p, which is 2K, and then 4K. So Jared Tech got 118 in 1080, 81 in 2K, 43 in 4K. My Windows system got 118, and then 110 in 2K and 70 in 4K. Now the difference here might have been just because I'm using newer drivers than Jared Tech. I don't know why the difference is so great here, and you don't see that normally on these Xeon systems. Every once in a while you will see something outperform even the latest greatest Windows system, but that's not the norm. So on Linux here, again, Linux is both my Windows 11 and Linux is running on that Xeon system. I got 118 for 1080p, 84 for 2K, 47 for 4K. So now let's just go ahead and look at the RX 6700 XT. So with this test here, we don't have any Jared Tech results because he didn't test this card with Shadow of the Tomb Raider built-in bench. So we have 140 on my Windows system, we have 140 in 1080p, 110 in 2K, 57 in 4K, 120 in 1080p on my using Linux, 106, 2K, 60, 4K. So there obviously is some difference there. But let's just keep on reviewing this. So Watchdog Legions, we have the RTX 3060. Now this is pushing that card to do this in ultra high mode, but that's what Jared Tech tests his stuff in, so that's what I tested mine with. So he has 66 in 1080p, 49 in 2K, 28 in 4K. I have 62 on my Windows system in 1080p, 48, 2K, 28, 4K. Then in Linux, I have 49 frames per second in 1080p, 34 in 2K, 22 in 4K. So a little disappointing there in the performance on the Linux. And again, when I did these systems, it was a fresh install of Linux, Windows 11, fresh install of Linux Mint. I didn't do anything to Linux Mint. There was only one thing that a gamer said that you could change, a setting in Linux Mint that you could change. It made a difference on his, but he was running games like in the 300 frames per second mode. And when I changed that on this Linux desktop, it didn't make any difference. Maybe a frame or two, and that was it. So it really didn't make any difference to make that change. But if you're a Linux guru and you're watching this and you know there's something different I could have done, but again, this is all out of the box. I'm not overclocking anything. I can't overclock the CPU, not overclocking the GPU. Everything is just out of the box, straight to gaming. So let's go ahead and look at more results. So with the 6700 XT with Watchdog Legions, I got, we don't have any results for Jared Tech. I got 85, 1080p, 64 2K, 37 4K, And then with Linux, I got 73, 1080p, 56, 2K, 35, 4K. Again, less frames per second. Then with Borderlands 3, I happened to get a 3080 right after I'd done all of my tests. So I just did this with Borderlands 3, and I only did it in 2K and 4K. And so Jared Tech actually compared the 3080 as well using Borderlands 3. He got 108 again using the built-in bench, the highest setting, which is their bad setting. And so it's 108 in 2K, 61 in 4K. So my Windows machine got 101 in 2K, 61 in 4K, and then Linux got 78 in 2K and 59 in 4K. So unfortunately, the 2K is a little disappointing. 4K hangs in there. So let's go ahead and go to F1 2020 using the RTX 3060. 152, and I don't have any Jared Tech info here. 152, 1080, the Windows 11 using Windows 11. 126, 2K, 59, 4K. Unfortunately, only 107, and I ran this several times. And this is what happened a year ago when I loaded up Linux onto a system. I did load up Steam and I ran F1 2020, and I noticed that the frames, because I'd been testing it, I knew what the frames per second were supposed to be in Windows, and I noticed how low they were in Linux. I'm like, whoa. But F1 2020 so far has been the least favorable in these results. So anyway, we're at 107, 1080p, 102, 2K, 76, 4K. Now this is what you will find sometimes with Linux. The 4K performance is better than Windows, and I don't know why that is, but that's the results I got. And again, this is the RTX 3060, so let's look at the 6700 XT, 211 at 1080p, 178 2K, so 116 4K, only 109. Again, F1 2020 performed the worst out of all the games I tested. I don't know why. 106 2K, 93 4K. So now let's look at Horizon Zero Dawn. I only tested the RX 6700 XT here, not the 3060, but we got 107, 1024, 81, 2K, 40, 4K, 90. It's on our Linux. We got 96, 1080p, 83, 2K, 45, 4K. And you'll notice here again, for whatever reason, I get a little bit more performance out of the 2K and the 4K on Horizon Zero Dawn. Moving to Gears, again, I only tested the 6700 here, and I tested this one in high only. But in our Windows machine, running Windows, we got 118 at 2K, 64 at 4K, and we got 102 at 2K on the Linux machine, and we got 61 at 4K on the Linux machine. Okay, so we're back on the desktop here. I tested these AAA games because they have the built-in benches. So if you're testing another game that's maybe higher frames per second, 200 to 400 frames per second, I don't know what that's going to be. I just wanted to build an easy way to compare apples to apples. But I did notice, obviously, some performance differences between Linux and Windows that wasn't really favorable. Sometimes in the 2K and 4K, especially the 4K, can be a little bit more performance for whatever reason. And I'm not doing this to discourage people from using Linux for gaming, but these are the results I got. Again, if you're a gamer out there, Linux gamer out there, and you know there's something I could have changed on my Linux desktop, let me know. But again, I just wanted to install everything like it was out of the box and just start running just like I would in Windows. At any rate, those are the results. My son is going to start gaming using Linux, so I'm setting this up for him to use, and I want him just to try it out, just to tell me what he thinks. He doesn't play the games that we watched here. I only did those because I just wanted to use the built-in benches so I can compare apples to apples. Anyway, this is TJ with TechMadeEZ. I hope that was helpful. I hope it doesn't discourage you from going to Linux gaming, but you might want to try it and try your games and see if there's a performance hit or not that you can live with or not. Anyway, this is TJ with TechMadeEZ.
Now that was easy peasy.
Thanks for watching.